Have you ever looked at one of those global flight maps? You know, the ones that show all the planes in the sky at once? It's like this glowing web connecting the entire planet. But then, your eyes drift down to the bottom of the world, and you see it. This huge, gaping hole. A massive patch of empty sky right over Antarctica.
So what's going on there? I mean, why is this entire continent, a landmass bigger than Europe, a total no-fly zone for pretty much every commercial airline? It's not about politics or anything like that. Nope. It's this really fascinating mix of extreme nature and just unbreakable rules. So let's dive in.
All right, so the first and, let's be honest, the most obvious reason is the continent itself. Antarctica isn't just kinda cold, it is actively, incredibly hostile to aviation. We're talking about the coldest, windiest, and driest place on the entire planet. To give you an idea of what we're dealing with, the lowest temperature ever recorded on Earth was right there, at Vostok Station, a bone-chilling minus 89.2 degrees Celsius. That's almost minus 129 Fahrenheit. At temperatures like that, stuff we totally take for granted, like jet fuel, the stuff that keeps planes in the air, can literally start turning into a thick gel. Not good.
And if the cold wasn't enough, then you've got the wind. I mean, we're not talking about a stiff breeze here. During one legendary 7-day blizzard at Australia's Mawson Research Station, they clocked a wind gust at 244 kilometers per hour. That is over 150 miles per hour. It's a force of nature so powerful it can literally move shipping containers.
And Antarctica has its own special, terrifying brand of wind. They're called katabatic winds. So just picture this. Super-cooled, really dense air at the top of the massive ice sheet just gets pulled downhill by gravity. It picks up incredible speed as it roars down these glacial valleys, creating this relentless, high-speed river of wind that is just unbelievably dangerous for any aircraft.
Now, what happens when you mix those insane winds with blowing snow? You get a total whiteout. Conditions where pilots literally cannot tell the difference between the sky and the ground. As one team at that Mawson station described it, visibility was zero for days on end. It's an absolutely terrifying thought, and sadly, it was a major reason for the tragic crash of an Air New Zealand sightseeing flight way back in 1979.
Okay, so the weather's a massive, massive deal. But you know what? Even if the skies are perfectly clear, there's a man-made rule that basically grounds most flights over the continent anyway. You can think of it as aviation's ultimate, unbreakable safety leash.
It's all about a rule called ETOPS, and you can really think of it like a safety leash for airplanes. It says that any twin-engine plane, which, by the way, is most of the planes we fly on today, has to always be within a certain amount of flying time from an airport where it can safely land if there's an emergency, like, say, an engine failure.
And this right here is the absolute heart of the problem. Antarctica is one giant ETOPS dead zone. Now, sure, there are a few ice runways for military and research plans, but there are exactly 0 commercial airports that are certified to handle a big modern passenger jet in an emergency. There's simply nowhere to go.
And think about what happens if something does go wrong. The situation is, well, it's dire. The Council of Managers of National Antarctic Programs, COMNAP for short, they confirm it. There are often no dedicated search and rescue teams anywhere in the region. Help would have to come from thousands of kilometers away. A fast response? It's pretty much impossible. The risk is just way, way too high.
Now, you're probably thinking, okay, hold on, but planes fly over the Arctic all the time. I've seen it on the flight map, and you are absolutely right. So what gives? Why is one pole a polar superhighway and the other is a total no-fly zone?
Well, it really comes down to 3 huge differences. First up, geography. The Arctic is an ocean surrounded by continents, North America, Europe, Asia, and those continents are dotted with airports that can be used for ETOPS diversions. Antarctica? It's the exact opposite, an isolated continent surrounded by a massive ocean. Second, infrastructure. All those continents around the Arctic give it a built-in safety net of airports. Antarctica has pretty much none. And finally, you've got economics. Arctic routes are actually a handy shortcut between the world's biggest cities. But nobody needs to fly over the South Pole to get from, say, Sydney to Johannesburg. There's just no demand.
But like any good rule, this one has a super cool exception. A little twist in the story of this vast, empty sky. So, after everything we've just talked about, the killer cold, the winds, the lack of airports, you've got to be wondering, is it even possible for an ordinary person to fly over Antarctica on a commercial plane?
And the answer is yes. Believe it or not, Qantas, the Australian airline, runs these absolutely incredible seasonal sightseeing flights. Now, they don't land, they just spend hours cruising over the continent, giving passengers these jaw-dropping views of the ice sheets, all from the comfort of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
Yeah, but these are not your average flights, not by a long shot. They're about 13.5 hours long. They actually fly at lower altitudes to give everyone a better view, and they even have this brilliant mandatory seat swap system so that everybody gets some time in a window. Plus, they have actual Antarctic experts on board narrating the whole journey and explaining the incredible landscapes you're flying over.
So the big question is, how on earth do they pull this off with that extreme cold we talked about? Well, it's a really cool mix of science and some clever engineering. First, they use a special kind of fuel called Jet B, which has a way lower freezing point. Then, they mix in special additives that act kind of like antifreeze, pushing that freezing point even lower. And finally, the plane itself helps out. The systems are designed to constantly circulate the fuel and even use a little heat from the engine oil to keep it all warm and flowing.
So, you see, when you put all these pieces of the puzzle together, it becomes pretty clear. The sky over Antarctica stays empty, not because of one single thing, but because of this powerful combination of factors that make it a true final frontier for commercial flight.
So, to wrap it all up, it really just boils down to three main reasons. First, the environment is just too extreme. It's the coldest, windiest place on Earth. Second, safety rules like ETOPS are non-negotiable, and without diversion airports, it's a no-go. And finally, the economics just don't add up. There's no commercial reason to fly a plane over the South Pole.
You know, it's a really powerful reminder, isn't it? That even today, in our totally hyper-connected world, there are still places on this planet that are so wild, so formidable, that nature still makes the rules, not us. And it really leaves you with a final thought. In a world where we can go almost anywhere we want, what does it really mean that one entire sky remains empty?